Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. We have three big movies out last weekend, and they are Downton Abbey, Rambo: Last Blood, and the Brad Pitt sci-fi thriller Ad Astra. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. Coming in at number one is Downton Abbey. This movie is sort of like the movie version of the TV series. It was pretty popular back then. It ended its run a couple years ago. Now this movie takes place a couple years after that. So this is a movie that I said could probably pull in or open to 5 to 10 million because hey, movies that's based on the TV series, sometimes they couldn't turn out the audience, they couldn't bring packed in the theaters, but this one apparently did, right? This one, Downton Abbey, opened to about 31 million. These are estimates, these are just the estimates. The real numbers will come in later today. So it opened to about 31 million, so it's way above my 5 to 10 million figure. So I guess there's a lot of pent-up demand for this movie. Remember that movie Entourage? That movie didn't open well, even though it was kind of pretty popular on HBO, I believe. But Downton Abbey, this one, surprises me. This is a British movie. It started off a TV show. I didn't know how popular it was, but it was pretty popular. And then I say, there's this movie version coming out right now, and that's why my projections for Downton Abbey was pretty low. I didn't think that the fans would turn out for this, and they did in huge numbers. So 31 million for Downton Abbey. Now, here's the thing though. Will the second weekend be as high? I mean, not be as high, but will they be after the fans turn out for this movie, will we experience a huge drop off in the second weekend? And you know what? I suspect so, because this is one of these movies that fans front load the movie, and in the second weekend and subsequent weekend it drop off. Or I could be wrong, and it could stay in theaters for a long time. But so far, this is my take right now. Reviews wise, it's actually pretty well reviewed, 85% on the tomato meter, and the cinema score is an A. So good scores from both professional critics and audience alike. So like I say, what does it mean for its long-term box office performance? I mean, since this is based on a TV show, and I suspect that fans front-loaded this movie, I think it will experience a huge drop-off in the second weekend. But then again, there's not a major movie coming up next weekend. They're all waiting for Joker coming out in 2 weeks. The studios are clearing out for that movie. So will there be a huge drop-off? Let's see. I suspect so. Maybe in the 50s, or if not the 60s. But like I say, I could be wrong about the popularity of Downton Abbey. Let's see how Downton Abbey did overseas. Overseas, they put in about 30.8 million for a worldwide total of 61.8 million. And surprise, surprise, about 7 to 8 million of that is from the United Kingdom. All right, let's move on to number two, which is Ad Astra, the Brad Pitt star sci-fi thriller. This movie pulled in 19.2 million. That's what it opened to. As for this movie, I say this movie could probably open somewhere around 20 to 25 million because, this is not an action-packed movie. It's more like a mystery thriller. And, if you've seen the trailer, it is sort of, like I say, it's not an action-packed movie. It's more like a thinking sci-fi thriller, psychological thriller that takes place in space. I gave it 20 to 25 because of, Brad Pitt is leading this movie, is headlining this movie, and he's good for a couple million here and there, right? But it only opened to 19.2 million, which is kind of at the lower end of my 20 to 25 million. I mean, when the real number comes in, it could be lower still, since these are just estimates, right? Reviews wise, it's actually pretty good, 83% on the tomato meter, but the audience score, the cinema score, is a B minus. So it's kind of average. So I think critics like this movie more than the audience, and I guess the box office kind of bears that out. Again, second weekend, I don't know how it'll do the second weekend, but I expect the drop off to be in the 50s. Let's see how Ad Astra did overseas. Overseas, they pulled in 26 million for a worldwide total of 45.2 million so far. All right, number 3 is Rambo Last Blood. This is a movie that I say could probably open to around 20 million, right? But it pulled in about 19 million or so estimated figures, a bit below Ad Astra. But when the real numbers comes in, right, it could be above Ad Astra, right? Because Rambo is an action movie, so this is a movie that teenagers would pack, right? Would pack theaters, would do better than at Astra, potentially. Stars Sylvester Stallone. He's back to stars the movie. Last Blood. According to interviews, Sylvester Stallone, said this might not be the final Rambo movie. If inspiration struck, there could be more, right? Coming along. Let's see, reviews wise, not that great. 27% on the tomato meter, a B cinema score. But you know what, it scored about 19 million in its opening weekend. All right, number 4 is It Chapter 2. In its third weekend, it pulled in 17.2 million, and domestic gross is 179 million. And let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled 179 million as well, for a worldwide total of 358 million. Even though domestically it looks like it's not gonna outgross the first movie, it's still doing actually pretty well. All right, number 5 is Hustlers, the stripper movie starring Jennifer Lopez, Constance Wu, and others. In the second weekend, the box office dropped about 49% to pull in about 17 million. Domestic gross is about 62.5 million, and let's see how it did overseas. It hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, only about 9 million or 10 million from overseas for a worldwide total of 72.4 million. But the budget's only 20 million, so it's actually doing pretty well. All right, number 6 is The Lion King. This movie keeps on hanging on. I mean, while the other movies dropped out of the top 10, this movie is still in it. So in its 10th weekend, The Lion King pulled in 2.6 million. Drop off is about 30% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 537 million thus far, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, they pulled in about 1.1 billion for a worldwide total of 1.6 billion. The budget is high, 260, but hey, it grows over 1 billion worldwide, so it's good investments for Disney. Number 7 is the R-rated comedy Good Boys. It pulled in 2.5 million in the 6th weekend. Drop off is about 41% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 77 million. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 21.4 million for a worldwide total of 99 million. So it's getting there to the 100 million mark. I'll probably cross it today by the time you hear this podcast. So and the budget is only 20 million, so it's actually doing pretty well. Number 8 is Angel Has Fallen. It pulled in 2.4 million over the weekend. This is 5th weekend. Drop off is about 47% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 65 million. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in about 54 million for a worldwide total of 118 million. So with the 45 million box office take, Angel Has Fallen has already outgrossed London Has Fallen in domestic take, but it still has ways to go to beat out the first and second movie in the worldwide box office. All right, number 9 is the faith-based film Overcomer. In its 5th weekend, it pulled in 1.5 million, a 45% drop off from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 32 million, but the budget is only about 5 million, so it's actually performing very well at the box office. I'm not sure if this movie will open overseas. I don't see any overseas figures yet, but hey, like I say, actually doing pretty well. All right, let's close out the top 10 with Hobbs and Shaw, the spin-off from the Fast and Furious franchise. That stars Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. In its 8th weekend, it pulled in about 1.5 million, a 48% drop off from the previous week, and domestic gross is 170 million. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 579 million for a worldwide total of 750 million. So, despite the huge budget, reportedly 200 million, pulling in 750 million worldwide and still going, it's actually doing pretty well. Like I said, I could see them continuing the Fast and Furious franchise with Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. All right, that's it for the box office top 10. Let's move on to the new releases this weekend, and it is the DreamWorks animation Abominable. I guess the title character Abominable, who is, I guess found himself in the human world, or maybe he's captured from his home, and now he's he wants to return home, and there's this young lady who is helping him to return. Right? It's a tale as old as time. It's kind of like the E.T. story, etc. Right? So this is that movie, except with a Yeti. Again, this movie felt like it's dumped into a weekend where studios are afraid to release their movies because in 2 more weeks, right, Joker is going to be in theaters, and that movie is projected to open huge. So any movies that's opening this weekend or after Joker are it's not probably they're probably not going to do well, because Joker is going to suck up the box office from the other movies. So again, Abominable is like, hey, there's a slot opened. It's gonna only able to get this weekend, and that's why Universal, who releasing DreamWorks movies here now, decided to open it this weekend. And if you go with the voice cast, there's not a lot of like major talent here. No one that people would usually recognize, like Chloe Bennett, voiced the female character, the lead. There's Albert Shai, Tenzing Norgay, Trainor, Joseph Izzo, Eddie Izzard, Sarah Paulson, and other like Asian sounding names in the voices. And you can see this is it has the China money, the DreamWorks has China money in here, and I think, investment. So I think this movie is probably going to play better in China because, they have the Kung Fu Panda connection there as well. So this is, I guess, it's a China play, it's a China tale, for that Eastern audience right there. So I don't think this movie is actually going to open well because, like I said, the voice talent is not there to make a play here. And the animation itself, I guess, just doesn't appeal to the animation fans. The budget is kind of lowish. It's 75 million for the movie's budget, but like Illumination made the movies for around that price as well. But for this one, it doesn't look as good. But then again, it's good enough right now. Animation, I feel, is good enough that you don't need a high budget. If they can make it for 75 million, great, right? It's good enough with that budget. Reviews for this movie so far as of Monday, September 23rd, is actually pretty positive, about 79% on the tomato meter, but I expect the numbers to go down as more reviews comes in. Like I say, this is a new property, so I don't expect there's a huge name recognition for this movie, except they can only advertise the DreamWorks studio, right, from the creator of like Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, etc. So they can only sell this movie to animation fans, DreamWorks fans, and there are those, right? For example, in 2015, Disney released Home, like kind of a new property, not a sequel. It opened pretty well, 52 million, went on to make 177 million domestic and, 208 million overseas for a worldwide total of 386 million. But that movie has some pretty good talent. I believe Rihanna was in it, and she did the songs as well. But this movie, I don't believe has any like big names in the voice cast, and neither did any famous musicians doing their songs. So like I said, it's more of a China play. So I think, like, given that, right, I think this movie could probably open somewhere in the 20 to 25 million range, because, of the DreamWorks brand, and not because of, the voice talent, and not because of the story, because the story appears to be pretty pedestrian. Like I said, this alien or creature wants to go home, and then, the government or this entity wants to trap or get this Yeti or alien whatever to study, or anyway, one of those stories. So like I say, it's a story as old as time, and 20 to 25 opening for Abominable until Joker comes along, and bulldozes the rest of the box office in 2 weeks. All right, so that's it for this week's podcast. Tune in next week to see how I did. Until then, take care. Bye bye.